Welcome back to the Team Building Podcast. It's Matt Johnson, special guest co-host for the day. I've got Jeff Cohn here, and man, we're back after a long time. My brother from another mother. Jeff, what's up today?
Let's go. You know what's really sad about that introduction, Matt? And we should actually cancel this and start all over. You missed out on 3 key points.
You are a man, a myth, and a legend. Nay, legendary.
I want to be the, with the little thingy above the E, man, the myth, the legend, the Oracle of Omaha. What's up, dude? This is awesome.
Oh,
and
man.
yeah, we don't do this enough. We're supposed to go once a month, you guys. So we are sorry. We have not done a great job. It's 100% my fault traveling too often. Matt's always there for me. And I have failed the audience. So we have Matt Johnson with us today, the author, the founder of Pursuing Results, author of MicroFamous. If you haven't picked up a copy yet, Matt, I'm sure you could share with our audience members how they could get one.
Yeah, it's on physical copies on Amazon, digital copy for free on getmicrofamous.com.
Matt has not shared this story yet, but he and I have traveled quite some times together. And I think the book came to him because he was with me so often. And in every setting other than real estate settings, I was just another guy. But when you entered a real estate event, people are asking for autographs. They're stealing my hat. It just got crazy. Hordes of people screaming, chanting my name.
It's exactly it. It's exactly it, Jeff.
I'd crowd surf, and he said, MicroFamous, that's what you are. I'm writing a book.
You are the inspiration for everything I do in my business and personal life, Jeff.
Yes. Through narcissism and sociopathology. That word.
That's right. Well, it takes a little work, but I've got a good head start on the narcissism, so why not?
Let's go. Well, we have a fun call today, guys. We're going OG all the way back to 2016. I was getting booked on all sorts of podcasts. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own podcast. And that's where Matt and I connected. And he told me he could help me get ours launched. We've now recorded over 200 podcast episodes. We have a 5-star review on iTunes. We're on all the other platforms as well. Really great feedback on there. And we would like to ask, if you haven't left a review yet, we're trying to get to over 1,000 reviews. So please go out to iTunes, give us a 5-star, give a quick shout out to whoever we have on that show that day. ERS launched. After the podcast launch, we decided to launch the coaching arm. And with that, I was being invited to be on a lot of podcasts and a lot of stages, and we needed to kind of come up with a 30-minute presentation that we could give that gave people a really quick download of what we were and what we represented. And so I came up with the acronym CLAP. And so I wanted to revisit CLAP. It's now called CLASS because evidently using the word CLAP isn't classy. And so we just switched to the S. But CLAP stand for culture, lead generation, accountability, processes, and strategies. And Matt was asking me before we got on today, what are the typical questions people are asking? And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, it's the same stuff. 5 years later, same content, same challenges, same issues. The world's moving faster. We have to respond quicker, but it's the same stuff. So that's what I want to talk about today.
So yeah, we're coming up on, so we talked about, before we hit record, we're about to go January 1st of 2022 is essentially the 5-year anniversary of the launch of Elite Real Estate Systems, right?
Yeah, the official launch. Yep, we had a handful of people start the beta. I believe it was summer of 16. And by the way, can we all just take a moment? 2022, 4 months away.
Oh, don't even.
2022.
No.
That's awesome. I turned 40
after this shit show of the last year and a half. I'm ready. I want to get as far away from as possible.
I'm going to be 80 in 2062. That's weird. Hope I'm around. I bet the world's gonna be pretty wild in 2062.
I was gonna say we'll definitely not be driving our own cars by then, and most likely somebody will have killed you by then. I assume, Jeff.
I hope I don't die. I hope that doesn't happen.
Class.
I asked somebody recently, Matt. I'm gonna put you on the spot. This will be fun.
All right, what's up?
For everybody to think about. So I was talking with someone recently about billionaires and how, of course, there's way less billionaires than there are millionaires. I don't know the percentage, but that'd be a fun thing to search. Dana, you want to do that on the side right now? What percentage of the world's billionaires, what percentage are millionaires? So I asked someone, how many millions, this could have been my 11-year-old son, I don't remember, but I just said, how many millions do you think is a billion? And a lot of people don't know the answer to that question. Do you know, Matt, on the spot? How many million? Yeah, it's 1,000. And then how many billions is a trillion? 1,000. So the thing I find fascinating for anybody and anybody that's in the financial world today, as you think about the inflation that we're seeing take place in our country, and you look at other countries that have been kind of in the same place that we are now 20, 30 years ago, and you watched what happened. I think that becoming a billionaire over the next 10 years will be the easiest process anyone in our history could have gone down that path to become a billionaire because of inflation. So today, the person with 100 million could easily potentially be a billionaire in 10 years, depending on how inflation hits and what they own when that inflation hits. So what should we own? Real estate. And what has happened just in like 3 years? Inflation. And everyone says, when's it going to come back down? I don't think it's coming down. I professed a year and a half ago it's not coming down. It's going to go up. It's just going to keep going up. And I think it's going to be harder to get money, and that's going to drive values even higher. And that's a problem in society right now.
What do you mean by that? It's going to be harder to get money. You think credit is going to tighten?
Yeah. Yep, 100%. I think interest rates will go up. Down payment requirements will probably go up. People will default on loans, which will cause rates to go up as well. So right now and I don't know a lot about economics. I know enough to be dangerous, but from what I've seen is the U.S. government is propping up small business who's been suffering because of government regulations surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. And right now we're still being propped up by that financial infusion. And I took advantage of that too. PPP loans, EIDL loans, small business administration loans. So what happens when all that stops? Where do those businesses go? The government's not just going to keep, hopefully, printing money to keep those businesses alive. They're going to have to let them crash and burn. And that's where I think we're going to see some crazy stuff start to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's I don't know if you heard the story. There's a diner in Washington that's been open for 50 years that just closed down. And they attributed it more to the labor shortage than to the $400,000 in fines they racked up for various reasons for violating insane restrictions. But that's another story. But yeah, that's it's a weird. I mean, once you start tinkering with the entire fabric of how things work, and you don't actually understand how economics work, you never know what the side effects are going to be. You can only predict that they will come at some point, and they will be bad because you cannot fight reality. So.
100%.
But at the end of the day, I think if people's core business is based on the fundamentals, which we're talking about, I think they'll be okay in the sense that as long as they're not over leveraged. Like that's what I think Warren Buffett has said that a million times. Like you will not find a really smart, really wealthy person that goes broke without leverage. So as long as you use leverage intelligently, you'll be fine through almost any market correction as long as you have business that's based on the fundamentals and you don't get over leveraged. And I think that's the temptation is during the good times, right up until 2020, there were some good times. Did people get over leveraged? And if so, how do you handle it? I just interviewed somebody on my podcast that ended up going to prison for 10 years for wire fraud, for how he was attempting to deal with getting over leveraged and having to move money between different LLCs that he had set up for different properties, all just basically trying to just make things float and make sure he took care of his investors. Like there was no necessarily ill intent behind it, but he broke some rules and the next thing you know, he's in federal prison. So yeah, I think that's the key is like you've got to have your core business based on class. Because if you do and you're not over leveraged, you'll be fine. The only question is just how long will it take to get back on your feet. So let's go through the acronym real quick once again and just see if there's anything that sparks that you've been thinking about lately. So culture leads accountability, either systems and strategies. Now I think it's class.
Yep. So we did, when it was CLAPS, it was processes and strategies. It was just some strategies because people didn't like the STD. So starting with
stay
culture,
classy.
You know, I want to say San Diego. I wanted to start by just talking about learning. And it's something that's been quite fascinating to me as I've watched people say with their words that they wanted to change and they want to become a better version of themselves and they want to hit their life goals and they want to make more money and they want a new house, they want a new dog and all these things. But then you look at the time they put into learning to become a better version of themselves, and there's not much time. So at the end of their day, they say they don't have the time for it. They have the time to watch Yellowstone. They have the time to walk their dog. They have the time to do all these other things, but they don't make the time to learn. And I think what's fascinating about the generation that now is kind of coming through, and my kids are 16, 14, 12, and I've watched, you know, we have college kids that we've hired. I don't think that they're learning as well as we possibly learned. I think there's too much content. They're content overwhelmed. Same thing's happening with podcasts, books, even events that people maybe choose to go to. And you get conflicting views as you start listening. So I think the important thing is take in everything. And I do this with politics as an example. I've done this with religion. Take in belief systems of every person, every entity, and then make decisions for yourself that are backed by analytics. So if you track everything, you're good. And there is a culture of that tracking. There's a culture of learning and continuing to try to better your business. And that's the exact point you made earlier, just saying that, you know, everyone will be fine if they're not over leveraged. Leverage is great. Don't be over leveraged. Always be in a position to pivot. But I think we can pivot today because of technology faster than we've ever been able to pivot in history. We can hire a call team of 100 people literally in 24 hours. When did that ever exist? Right? You can go pay 10 grand a month right now for leads for 1 month, and then the next month shut it off by the click of a button. So now it comes down to people. So when you talk culture, who are the right people to have, the seats in the bus? A book I've referenced a lot on here is the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick and Sione, making sure you have the right people in the right place. But where that all starts is, where are you seated on the bus? Are you in your strongest position? Should you be the rainmaker of the team right now, or should you step away so that you can focus on building the team? Should you be the accountability coach? Should you be the ops manager? Should you be writing checks, or should somebody else be doing it? And people always say, well, I don't like that part of my job. Well, then quit doing that part of your job. You can hire somebody else to do it, or work towards hiring somebody else to do it. And I think that's a big part of culture. What's been your experience, Matt?
Oh, man. Well, I'm seeing the same thing that you are. The content overwhelm. You put it really well. And I hadn't thought about it quite like that, but you're 100% right. Like I swim in the ocean of podcasting every day, but honestly, I don't listen to a lot of business podcasts for myself anymore. I listen to it for business purposes, right? To stay on top of what's working, what's not for the agency. But honestly, like I get more of my content from books, and I get way more out of books than I get out of just consuming a bunch of content, video and audio. And I think people are overwhelmed. I think you can see it in the sense that I would say maybe the top couple of percentage points of people who sell online courses are profitable. Everyone else is break even or worse. And they're the ones struggling to run ads, build their email list, and all this stuff. And only the biggest players are really making that business model even work anymore. Well, why is that? Well, it's because there's so much competition out there. But yeah, I mean, at this point, we're in a very odd. We have an abundance of something that used to be scarce, which is we have an abundance of content, success content. We have an abundance of strategy, systems, processes, like all that stuff. Like, this is now abundant. You can hear the top guys, the top gals in the country sharing basically everything, because they know you're probably not going to apply 99% of it. So there's no incentive for them to hold back. Nobody's holding back. So the question is, yeah, you mentioned all the conflicting viewpoints. What do you do with it? Well, at the end of the day, you have to be willing to apply the scientific method to your own business. Come up with a hypothesis, try something out, test it, see if it worked, and then go, great, it either worked or didn't work. Now let's move on to the next thing, because you don't know what's going to work for you. You're not going to get any fewer conflicting views by consuming more content. You're only going to get more noise. So the question is, what do you do with the noise? You've got to actually try something, and that's what bothers me, I think, the most. Is the generation of people that I see, because I hire kids pretty fresh out of college as well, is they are uncomfortable / resistant to that kind of thinking. Come up with a hypothesis. Let's figure out something that will test it. Let's find out what the fact is. Will it work or will it not work? And let's see if it works, and let's do it. They are uncomfortable with that because it forces them to confront the real world and put their ass on the line.
The challenge is that we are indoctrinated by our socialization, which starts with the family and the school system that we come from, and we're taught to not fail. We should be encouraged to raise our hand and get the answer wrong, but no kids feel good when they raise their hand and get the answer wrong, so they stop raising their hands. And those are the kids that we're hiring as college students, graduated from college. So celebrating people's failures, and no failure is a failure if you learn from it. And so I think that's hard to learn. That's hard. Personally, I don't like losing money. I remember losing, my wife and I, when we were dating, my wife was on an AT&T roaming plan and thought that when we were on some phone calls while she was out of town, that was covered on her roaming plan, and it wasn't. Her bill was like $979. And I'm telling someone this story the other day, and they're like, wow, that's a lot of money back then. And I said, back then? $1,000? That's a lot of money right now. Like, that would kill me right now to get a cell phone bill for an extra $1,000. Like, that's a lot of money. So I don't know where I'm going with it. But one thing I do want to say is, if you want to be an oak tree, you got to start with an oak seed, an oak tree seed, right? And so what I think is fascinating is people go and look for content from entities, people, mentalities that aren't what they want to become. So follow the person, the entity, the mouthpiece, the book, the author, the podcast of a person you want to be like when you grow up. If everything and anything I represent isn't what you want, I invite you to never come back to my podcast and go find a podcast that emulates what you want and you feel like best identifies with who you are. And that comes kind of, and we can end on culture, but that's kind of where I would end the culture conversation, is your culture is an extension of you. If you don't like your culture, you say your team culture sucks, that's because you've sucked as a leader, identifying what the culture is that you want, and then making sure that you help the agents to emulate that same culture and expand and grow upon the culture that you're looking for in your organization.
Yeah, it's just to finish that off, and then we'll close down. I read a really interesting anecdote in a novel of all places, but it was really good because I know it's true. I've heard it before. The development of the AK-47. You ever heard about this? So the Russians knew that mostly they were putting these guns in the hands of untrained people, a lot of farmers, peasants, people that were not super experienced. They knew they weren't going to have a lot of time and resources to train them. So there's little things about the gun. It's not just that it's a reliable gun. They understood and they thought really deeply about how people are going to use this in real life. So for example, the full auto selector switch on an AK-47, if you just pick up the gun and crank it to the end, it doesn't go to full auto, because what will happen is you fire it off and you'll be left with an empty clip right at the start of a gunfight. When you just pick up and you're in fight or flight mode and you push that selector switch all the way to the end, it goes to single shot. Counterintuitively. All American guns, it's full auto at the end, the single shot's in the middle, right? You have to deliberately choose to have a single shot. They're like, no. We have to account for not how we would like people to be, but how people actually are.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, that's very interesting.
So I think, and that's you're a big inspiration for that. I built my entire business on systems first, then people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I watched you deal with people as they are, not how you would like them to be.
Yep, I love it. That's perfect.
Yeah. All right. How do people best get in touch with you guys? Learn more about the coaching, learn more about team building workshops, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. First off, this podcast is really what set us off. We never even wanted to coach, kind of doing a revisit to the 5 years ago. That was never my intention. I didn't want to be a coach personally, one-on-one. That wasn't where I was going to get my passion, and I only could influence a number of people doing that, and I wanted to be able to grow exponentially. So we launched the podcast to give back. We had so many people reach out saying, hey, we want to do coaching. We want to come to workshops. And that's why we started adding them. So we host a workshop physically in Omaha 3 times a year. And then we have a big annual summit that's once a year in the summer. Our next big workshop is coming up right around the corner. It's in September. We'd love to invite you guys. I think it's September 20th, 21st, and 22nd. All Monday is on investing and how I took my disposable income and put it towards acquiring a portfolio of over $10 million worth of single-family, multifamily. And my partner, Clint, will introduce you to all of our direct reports on who helps us build that. And then day 2 is all team building, where we take you through all the nuts and bolts of the class. So culture, leads, accountability, system, strategies. You'll get to hear from my ops manager, Kevin, our success manager, Andy, and then I'll be there as well. And we're there the whole time. We're not a sellout event where you see the VIP or the keynote who's there for 30 minutes and then they leave in their limo to get into their Hyundai rental car and drive home. So we are going to be there all day, all night. We hang out with everyone. We go to the happy hours. It's a really awesome event. If you were ever to go to an event and you feel comfortable coming this September, this is the event to come to. Go check out more information on that. Just go to eliterealestatesystems.com, click on events. It'll show you all the upcoming events. We do have virtual events as well. And then, of course, our main offering, Elite Real Estate Systems High-Level Team Leader Coaching. It's $997 a month, but you get the first 3 months 50% off. You can learn more about that. Go to ersdemocall.com. You can get on a call with our CEO, Kevin McGowan. He'll take you through the whole product offering, or you can find more information on the website. We have a fun little cartoon and tons of information out there to show you all the topics that we cover. And then, of course, with the ERS product offering, there's the agent training product. It's only $97 a month. All your agents get on it for free if you're a team leader client. And that's a Monday topical training every week for an hour, and then a Wednesday dialogue training every week for an hour. And then the last thing is with the team leader product, we do team leader calls that are just the team leaders every Thursday. We usually average about 50 people on that group coaching call on Zoom. Then you also get, as a bonus, the Tuesday investor training. So we have 52 topics every year that we go over that teaches how to invest in single family, multifamily, from lead gen to lead acquisition, et cetera. So a lot of fun stuff with ERS, and there's a ton of stuff coming out in the next year. We're going to start coaching title companies. We're going to start coaching insurance agents. We're going to start coaching mortgage companies, because ancillaries is our big thing right now, helping to prop up the profit margin as the traditional real estate commission is challenged. We want to make sure agents and people that are in the real estate business stay in the real estate business, and we know we can do that by providing the consumer with a one-stop shop solution, helping create the hybrid agent, the hybrid tech-powered agent of the future. And that's everything we represent and what we talk about in our coaching product and at the workshops.
Love it. All right, eliterealestatesystems.com. And hopefully, Jeff, you're not quite really in the saddle. Like, you're kind of back in Omaha, but apparently you're going to be traveling just as much as you have been over the summer, you claim?
I'm in all sorts of saddles. Yeah, dude, it's been crazy. I spoke at Boomtown Unite. I'm going to be speaking at Mega Camp Virtual. We were out in San Diego, I told you, at the Steve Sims event. And then a week and a half ago, I was in Alaska fishing with our mortgage and insurance company. And then last week, I took my family to Lake of the Ozarks. But I actually, as of right now, the recording of this podcast, I have 0 trips planned for the rest of my life. Nothing on the book. That does not happen very often.
For the rest of your life, yeah.
There's
That'll last
right
about,
now.
what, 3 days?
Yeah. I need to start loading up. 2022, we get loaded up.
Exactly.
So if anyone has any great trip ideas, I do travel. I love to speak at events, big events. I like to have large audiences. I'm into all that kind of stuff. You can instant message me or email me, or just you can reach out on the Elite Real Estate Systems page if you'd like to book us for something like that. We also still do the virtual workshops, the on-site workshops. So for 10 grand, we'll bring all of our staff and we'll give you the same workshop you'd get if you came to Omaha. And that works a lot of times. If you're going to bring a team of 7 or 8 people and you're looking at $1,000 a person for the workshop, some brokerages just say, hey, let's just fly them out and we'll spend a whole day with your company and we'll go out at night, we'll do dinner. And it's a really fun time. So for anybody that makes sense, would love for you guys to hit us up. If you're in San Diego, maybe we'll give you a little bit of a discount. Let's say Hawaii, San Diego, Florida.
Let's call it the sunshine discount. Yeah.
Alaska, maybe right now.
So I got your answers here to your question. How many millionaires and billionaires?
Let's hear it, Dana. This phantom voice, by the way, is my producer. He's my sidekick. He's my better half. Dana Hand. Go ahead, Dana.
So we got 20 million millionaires is what Google pulled up.
Everybody's a millionaire.
Yep. And then 2,755 billionaires.
Wow.
With 493 new billionaires, probably from the last year.
Wow.
Goodness.
That's really interesting.
So what is 2,000 into 20 million? 1%?
I think it was a count maybe from the last couple years.
2 million divided by 8. How many was it? Jeez.
No, it's a tenth of 1%. So one 1,000. So there's about 1,000 times more millionaires than there are billionaires. So it's like the most extreme example of the 80-20 rule.
Out of the 2,700 billionaires, 500 entered that world the last 12 months.
That's what I've been hearing and that's what I just pulled up here on Google. It said, it's just a simple Google search, 2,755 new billionaires, new members to the list, 493. That's what I've been hearing.
That's pretty crazy as a percentage. What percentage? That's 20%.
I'm just looking forward to Jeff's new podcast, How to Become a Russian Oligarch.
Yes. Let's go.
All right, gentlemen.
Fun fact. That was awesome. You guys, one final thing. If you're still hanging with us, thank you for coming through this whole podcast with me and Mr. Matt Johnson. Please go out to iTunes. I'd love a 5-star, trying to get to 1,000 reviews. You're going to see there's like 150 reviews or something like that. So I'm saying 1,000. I'll be saying that for quite some time. I am committing to 1,000 episodes, by the way. I think that's when Pat Hyben said, I'm out. And he was doing dailies. So add up the years. How many more do we have? 10 years? 20 years? I have 800 more to go. 800
That's right.
I think it's a lot of years.
15 years, yeah.
But this is awesome. This is my passion. I love it. If you can't tell, I always bring energy to these. And it's funny, Matt, as we've ran, every time we host events, every time we go to events and people say they've heard of us, we always will say, where'd you hear about us from? And 98% will say the podcast. Everybody loving it. So I appreciate you, Matt. I'll publicly thank you in pursuing results. You guys have an amazing staff. You're doing an awesome job. We would not be here if it wasn't for you. We definitely wouldn't be having 120,000 downloads a year. You guys do an awesome job writing copy. And so I'll just kind of parrot what I've heard from our audience members. A lot of people are reading the copy that you write and make decisions on which podcast to listen to based on the copy that's there. And the titles are great and specific to the point. I think there's people out there that do podcasts that kind of lie. There will be like a 5-minute conversation about X, like let's say AK-47s, and then the whole article or the title is AK-47s and how that attributes to your business. And then it's like a little
just misleading.
Exactly. So you guys have done an amazing job, and thank you publicly for 5 years of growth, over 200 podcast episodes, over 120,000 downloads a year, 5-star rated. If you search team building, I come up before Tony Robbins. Mic drop.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Sure. All right, guys. Well, like you said, go leave a review. Do it right now. Do not delay. Pick up your phone, get out the Apple Podcast app, go click on write a review, say something nice. If you like a particular guest, make sure to give them a shout out. Not me, but some of the other guests that have been on the show. And join us next time for the next episode.
See you, Matt. Thanks, you guys.